Peace everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about a pandemic which is far greater than any pandemic that has existed in history before.
From beautiful seas to flourishing legacies.
This is not a pandemic which is affecting our bodies only. It is not something that is brought on by disease, at least not in the way that we understand it to be, the same as COVID, for example. It is something which is affecting us at such a fundamental level of our identity and our relationships, and it's something which is just being noticed and just being understood recently. This phenomena is something that hasn't even been asserted by the American Psychological Association, though great thinkers and great writers in trauma have spoken about this in depth. And this thing which is affecting so many of us is childhood trauma, also known as complex PTSD. And that is a definition, and it is a word which defines a person's upbringing and being brought up in a certain environment and a certain society, where they have been affected by their caretakers. It could be their parents, it could be people around them, it could be siblings, really anyone who is around to take care of them. And what has happened is this broken attachment, and this broken attachment has led to so many other issues that we are dealing with in later life. I recently spoke about a webinar that I am going to be hosting. I'm not sure if I've already launched it by the time this video is out, but this webinar is about the pain of the prophets, peace be upon them. And this one specifically, the topic of this webinar was on the life of Ibrahim, peace be upon him, who was a prophet of Islam. Now Ibrahim, peace be upon him, he was known for many things. One is that he was known as one ummah, one nation by himself. And another thing that he was also known for, which in fact a lot of the people who signed up for the webinar asked these questions, and they were questions which were very powerful and very meaningful and very personal as well. And these questions they were asking was about their own parenting and their own being brought up in a certain community and then being affected by certain members of their family when they were children, and how they are coping with it now. And that is the key thing I want you to take away. So complex PTSD, back to this pandemic that is affecting so many communities. It is not something that only affects Muslim communities, it affects non-Muslim communities, and there is this rising of it in the world today. And honestly, I'm really surprised that there's not much more literature on this, seeing as the effect that it has on so many parts of our own lives and the lives of the society itself, right? The leaders of institutions are have been through complex PTSD. The systems they have created are based on their own trauma, hence we are repeating these patterns upon our own children, and that is their legacy. It is a cycle that continues and continues. But I'm going to reel it back in a little bit before going too far and just say that so many people are dealing with this issue of complex PTSD. Complex PTSD, in a nutshell, is a term which is coined by a few modern thinkers. One of them is Pete Walker and another one is Judith Herman. They spoke in depth about what complex PTSD, and it is the effect of repeated trauma upon a person during a close related timeline. And the one which affects us the most is the one we had in childhood. That is where developmental trauma was created. But you can also get complex PTSD by being in a very toxic relationship with someone. So for example, there are certain patterns of behavior that this person is exhibiting. It could be someone who you're with, for example, is affecting you. These people are abusers. They have done things to you over and over again for the years you've been with them, and it's created something within you that is a reaction. And that is what happens with complex PTSD when it is triggered. When we are triggered and triggered, what I mean by triggered is when we are put into an emotional state that is very similar in feeling. It's not a visual thing, it's a feeling that we are put back in for when we felt like when we were children, that abused child, that abandoned child, and the effect that we were in that a difficult relationship. It can be something that is brought up through a trigger normally, and these are more relationship triggers. However, this pandemic affects so many of us in so many ways, and so many of the reactions that we have are what we call coping mechanisms. And some coping mechanisms, to see if maybe you fall into this category, because a lot of the abuse that happened to us, a lot of the time we don't even remember it happened because it was pre-verbal, is before we even had the capacity to remember things like we do right now. And these things are evident, they are present inside of our bodies. So some of the signs of a person having complex PTSD is the feeling of being obsessive and compulsive in your thinking or your actions. You're constantly trying to be perfect, right? You're always on the go. You feel like it's never enough. You always need to do more. That's a sign of complex PTSD. The second sign is someone who is abusive to other people. They project blame onto others. They expect perfection from others. They are very controlling people. Can you name what this kind of person is? I know you can, right? And that's the second kind of coping mechanism. It's a coping mechanism from this pain that a person experienced in their childhood and through their development as well. And the third coping mechanism is zoning out, feeling like you are numb to life in general, watching or binge watching shows on repeat, having a Netflix weekend and another Netflix weekend and a Netflix weekend, ongoing, just completely just zoning out of life in general. And the other coping mechanism, which is something I'm sure so many of you who are watching this can relate to, is people pleasing. This is where we give up our needs and we literally become numbed. Our needs become numbed out, but what we do is we don't show ourselves, and what we're constantly doing is trying to relate to someone on a way that we feel that they want us to. We're adapting, we're changing, we are becoming whatever they want us to be. One day we could be the entertainer, one day we could be the parent, one day we are the counselor, one day we are the best friend, one day we are the one that they are going to abuse constantly, right? So there are so many ways that complex PTSD can show up. Extreme example, but so many people who I know have come to me personally telling me the most unthinkable things that I can't even mention on this video, in this space as well, because they are so sad, they are so difficult to even think about. Most of our minds won't even go there, but these people have been through these things, and I think it's time that we started talking about it, bringing attention to it, and hopefully in the next few videos I will be doing that. If you are someone who has gone through something like this, I am open to answer your questions, to talk to you. I also do coaching. I have resources for you, and there are multiple resources out there for you as well. All the details are under this video. I also have a free downloadable for you. It is on the topic of surrender from my book, The Woke Writer. The book is all about inspiration, and that topic of surrender is about really finding your strength through the power of submitting to your greatest purpose rather than people around you. And what that includes is ridding the clutter out of our lives, and we have so much clutter. I also have a free course for you as well based on every single chapter of my book. Check that out. Have a blessed day, everyone. Peace.